Hello. So, my name is Savaya. Some of you know me as Gabriel. And I would like to share with you some knowledge about universal teachings. And in this case, it is about a small portion of a bigger vault or database. And the knowledge comes from a material that is out of print. But there are sources on the internet that have recorded and uploaded the information. I would like to take a step back and say two things, maybe three. This video is for a number of people who are in my sphere of influence. You may not know it. And I have some hesitation to share this video to some people, but I will see where this goes. The knowledge attributes to a history of Egypt and even before Egypt. And there are many records, some true, probably some untrue, and some probably mixed, that try to foretell the history of humanity, the history of other civilizations in this universe. Some true, some not true, potentially some mixed. And so it can be hard to discern, I think for most people, how to extract knowledge and synthesize it into wisdom, or synchronize it into wisdom. And so the next thing that I would like to say is that the material of this knowledge I would like to present to you. But on the double side, so for the double-sided formation that I would like to share with you, I'm not using the correct words, is also a database of sound, of vibration. Some call it music, but I call it, in essence, knowledge. In a particular form, so I'm going to be careful with my words here. And I know I'm not speaking professionally. I'm not trying to necessarily be perfect here. So the next thing that I would like to say is, I would like for you to have available in your disposal a record of the knowledge that is dictated by Osiris, and there are a few others, Isis, Oneferu, Adolemi, not sure if I'm pronouncing them correctly, and there is one other that I don't think I can name, not because I'm withholding the name from you, it's just because the name is an undercover for a much bigger name. and it might be related to or relegated to the Sphinx. There's a lot of information on the internet about this stuff, whether right or wrong. People have big beliefs, big paradigms that fill up many books. So I'm not really interested in doing, how shall I say, a very thorough investigation of whether or not the information that I wish to present with you is absolutely true. I have recently read a book called The Chronicles of Osiris by H.C. Randall Stevens. And I will leave it to you to decide whether his database, the material that he was an instrument for, resonates with you, parts of it resonate with you, or that it is not applicable, accurate, and reliable. But I share this with you because I had an experience recently. And I can't really describe it with words, but we are at a time of much change. And I would like to include the musicians, if they can be called musicians, as I think they are, in a way, composers of vibration, composers of magic. And I use that word lightly, or maybe not so lightly. I'm not a big connoisseur of practices and knowledge and books, rituals that are considered magic. But in this case, there are certain wielders of vibration that create very symphonic vibrations, and some have tried to re-emerge the mystery schools of old, whether through Egypt, through Atlantis, through the Nordic, Druidic line, through certain lines of Asia, East Asia, South Asia, or Central and South Asia. So I'm at 8 minutes. And if I were like a critic, professional, I would say this is too slow. You're not giving enough facts and figures, especially to the audience that you're wanting to share this with, which is such a diverse audience. I'm not even really comparing in categories who this message should exactly go towards. But there are those of us who are part of the initiatic tradition, and I feel we all deserve to hear a couple things regarding what I've just said, and also that it is possible that a community can be built by us. But that is not the essential point, I would say. It's great. It could be helpful. It can help us grow. We can enjoy it. You know, this technology we have is absolutely profound, with all the different scenarios and results that can take place. But essentially, I would like to say in conclusion that when you sort of dive into some of this information about planet Earth, and perhaps even how there are other civilizations and their history that are being played out worked through planet Earth in a way in which I may not be able to describe very well. And it can seem very important. It can seem very serious. Some people say that Earth is it's the central battleground for the solar system, for the galaxy. Some people even say it for the universe. I don't believe this, although there are studies into the zodiac about how there are various constellations involved with planet Earth, and certain civilizations involved with planet Earth, some of which have fell and are being worked out here. And there's also knowledge suggesting that certain beings are also being transferred from planet Earth to other evolutions, as everyone has a certain amount of opportunity here on this planet. And so I would like to say in the grand scheme of the universe, one might be able to say there are an infinite number of Earth-like scenarios, all uniquely different. And one might also say that these types of situations where life is difficult are very, 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 very small, very minuscule, an extreme minority of the experiences that happen in the universe, the evolutions, the civilizations that exist and experiment in the universe. And one might say this can be backed up by certain revelation, recent revelation. But the point of the matter is, I am just grateful to be able to witness certain knowledge and balance that out with the play of life that will one day allow all of us to forget. And that may not be the best word, but maybe it is to let go of the history of planet Earth, other histories of civilizations and planets and worlds and systems perhaps, some of which I think a lot of us don't have a lot of information about. Not that it's really necessary for our daily living, but in the grand scheme, I think we will all move on, and we might have a database that we might look back to about our experiences on Earth or Earth-like planets, but without judgment, without fear or anger, without drama, without attachment. I think what is happening is beautiful, and there will continuously be difficult times ahead. But if we really, if we really look at the history of planet Earth, we have been through many, many difficult experiences. For those of us who are not so new, there are perhaps some rare cases where some of us are new. But anyways, I have shared most of what I wanted to share. I have a very disorganized online database of PDF files, ranging from the light arts, the dark arts, recent history, extended history, certain literature, and an unknown category of arts called the unknown arts, which is more so just material that I haven't filtered and refined into their certain categories. But I think there are other websites such as sacred-text.com, I think it's .org, I'm not sure, I think it's .com, that has a plethora of material out there. But I also would like to let some of you know that there is a database of progressive revelation, and I will probably try to put this in the message. To help people refine and discern a whole plethora of information that is spewing out of all sorts of subjects and categories, because of the internet and the advanced communication channels and freedom that people have to share their conscience without being restricted by government or special interests. So with that being said, that is the main message. One might say, when are the future schools, universities, going to rise up? When are the future centers for rehabilitation, spiritual rebalance, reconfiguration? When are these places going to start to arise, where people can get help, assistance, deep assistance, and engage in a certain program that, in a recent book I read, under a teacher who is now a graduate of planet Earth, said it can take 10, I think he said 13 years for an individual to fully integrate and stand in their mastery. And it can be difficult for many of us living day to day in the world to really find time and space to devote activities towards ourselves and the betterment of others. But I don't wish to speak so much more about this, other than I feel the community of the future will be rough in the short term, in the years ahead. But over the long term, I believe we will get there. And I don't expect all of us to come together and agree on a declaration, a constitution, a portfolio for the new cycle of programs and activities. But I know this message isn't very enthusiastic, but our consciousness and vibration will attract to us, our actions will attract to us the future group of world servers dedicated towards goodwill, non-dualistic relationships, and the spirit of community, where we all share in the process of expanding and feeding the flame and still money will be an issue in I don't know. No, it won't be an issue. Money is never an issue. It's our view of money. But as time goes on, money will fade out of the picture and will be replaced by intelligence, consciousness, integrity, and the records that can show who we really are is not just some false representative trying to steer attention away from the development of the whole of humanity. So this is kind of a long video. If we are considering time, if we are considering how this information may not directly relate to your own life, but I have shared my piece, and I would be welcome if any of you wanted to try to experiment with a different type of community. What would that look like? Well, so far, we have online technology and tools, but do we have on-land technology and tools, connections, and ambitions, objectives towards holistic living, communal living, spiritual living, even though it doesn't require us to be isolated from society? And that is an ideal form that I would like to experiment with and integrate with and begin to solidify with in my local city of San Francisco, where I will be flying back to in a few days, and seeing if there can be any work, trade, living agreements with the farmers market. But not all of us are meant to play that route or go into the grassroots movement route. Some of us are meant to dive into the system and the various institutions, the professional fields, and see what can be done there. And for some of us, I think a lot of people are in stasis with a job that doesn't often pay well. It's a very exploitive oftentimes, and often leaves one's physical body very tired at the end of the day, but also psychologically very tired, because sometimes there's a lot of resistance to a lot of regular jobs towards imbuing new creativity, new ideas, new forms of playfulness, new forms of getting along, and suggesting a deeper purpose can be built into the most basic of services and products exchanged in the consumer market. So that's basically all that I wanted to say. And if anyone is interested, I would be open to creating a circle of the flame, or a circle of fire, where we share our self we share our spirit, whether with our eyes closed or with our eyes open. But in essence, we would be trying to share our heart, which is supposedly referred to as the center point of the universe, or it is the seat of the Most High, of the creative principle, of the creative intelligence. And I feel there's a lot of growth that I am desirous of in that arena, in that field, whatever we want to call it. Being a teacher of consciousness, or rather an example of ever-evolving transcendent consciousness, which can get very airy-fairy if we don't ground with current events, if we don't ground with current conditions, which is why I think we could all help each other. Because we all are a reflection of what is happening. Even though many of us realize we are also beyond what is happening, or being defined by what is happening. So that's what I wanted to say. There's probably a lot more details, a lot more specific information that could be shared that is not shared right now, but for now, if those of you who feel the spark, feel the flame, feel the fire, I welcome you into my sanctum sanctorium, my heart of hearts, into the light of lights. On earth as it is in heaven.